Thank you for joining me on today. This is the Dr. Eric K. Coleman Show. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and click the notifications tab to stay abreast with all content pertaining to this platform. You can follow me on Instagram at Dr. Eric K. Coleman, Facebook, Dr. Eric Coleman, and contact me at Dr. Eric K. Coleman, all one word, at gmail.com to book one-on-one sessions, speaking engagements, and submit inquiries, questions, and episode content suggestions. So welcome back, fam. This is part two of the conversation about healthy relationships. We will continue the conversation as we unpack the TED Talk that we started last week by Joanne Davila concerning how to select, cultivate, and sustain healthy relationships. And again, this is in conjunction with a few of the chapters from the Paradigm book, chapters 4 and 5 and 8, concerning expectations and being in love with the idea of relationships, but not the person you are in relationship with. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump back into the conversation from last
And
week.
with emotion regulation, you'll be able to maintain a sense of self respect and commitment to your needs, even when bad things happen in your relationship. So, let's say you have a breakup, you're feeling really depressed, you're really missing your partner. With emotion regulation, you'll be able to let yourself know that it's okay, that yeah, you're going to feel depressed, but you're going to get over it. You're going to get through this. If you beg and plead to get back together, you're not going to feel good about yourself, and you don't even want to be in a relationship that wasn't good for you. So insight, mutuality, and emotion regulation, I believe it's people's ability to use the skills on a day-to-day basis that lets them have healthy relationships. So let me give you an example of how this works. The other day I was talking to someone, and she said that when her partner asked her what she wanted for her birthday, she told him she didn't want anything. So guess what? She didn't get anything, and she got really angry, and they had a big fight. Why? Because she really did want a present. She just didn't want to tell him. She wanted him to somehow know. It's called mind reading.
I think a lot of us can relate to this example here concerning mind reading. So here the scenario was the young lady said, "Hey, um, my birthday's coming up." The gentleman asked her, "Well, what do you want for your birthday?" She says, "Nothing." And how does the man respond? He responded literally with, "Okay, this is what you communicated to me. I will not get you anything." And so, needless to say, she's upset. So I can pretty much, fathom how this conversation is going when they got into the argument. Um, Lady, I cannot believe that you, man, did not get me a birthday gift. How dare you? And this shows that you just do not care about me. And from the man's point of view, he's saying, "Well, I asked you, and you communicated to me that you did not want anything." And so here we see two sides of a coin here, to whereas, let's be perfectly honest, you know, we got to make sure that our yes is yes and our no is no. Um, if there's something that you want, that you need, that you desire, you have to make that known. We cannot have this unrealistic expectation that people can read our minds. Well, I said one thing, but I really meant another, or you should just know. And I'm pretty sure that was part of the conversation. I should not have to tell you what I want for my birthday. You should have been observing me over the past 364 days of the year, of the previous ones, aside from this one day, being in tune with what I sent as subtle hints, or what I like, my favorite colors, what I suggested that, oh, that's pretty, that's nice, I wouldn't mind having that. She's thinking in her mind that he should just know. If you really love me, you should just know. And that is just so far from the truth. Now, should the brother have not given anything? No, he shouldn't have. However, he responded in a literal fashion to a direct and pointed question. What do you want? And she did not answer the question in fashion of what her real intent was. So when we talk about engaging in relationships, we have to be very clear. We have to be very intentional. We have to be very pointed about what it is that we desire in our relationships in order to get the right results. So let's carry on and see how this shaped
It's a
up to
terrible
be.
idea. It never works. Had she been using the skills, insight would have let her know herself well enough to realize that she really did want something, and if she didn't get it, she was going to be mad. Insight also would have let her know that her partner was the kind of guy who was just going to take what she said literally.
Absolutely.
Mutuality would have let her really ask for what she wanted directly and clearly.
Yes.
And emotion regulation would have let her deal with any feelings she was having that were getting in her way of doing that. So maybe she was feeling kind of anxious. So, what would he think if I asked for what I needed? Or maybe she was feeling guilty. You know, she knows they're saving for a big trip, and she maybe thought that he would think that she was kind of greedy or something.
So again, with that, we got to do the work to figure out what is in our backpacks. And you hear me talk about this a lot. Backpacks. What is this luggage that we are carrying around? And there's a song by Erica Badu, which is so apropos. It's called Bag Lady. And it can apply to women and men the same. There are things in our bags that we're just carrying around that is so heavy and burdensome that when we unload this stuff on people that we have engaged in a relationship with, it is way too much to bear. Have you ever overpacked for a trip? And when you got there, you notice that I didn't need this. I don't need this. I don't need that. But it was just so much to carry, and it was so cumbersome and burdensome that you had to pay extra fees. You had to do all this other stuff just to get the luggage there. And you realize, well, I didn't need all this, and it was a hassle just to get it here, or you didn't pack enough. And now when you get there, depending on the destination, now you're having to run around to Walmart and all these other little places to pick up items that you left because once you got to the destination, you were not able to fully engage in all that the destination has to offer because you were ill prepared. You didn't pack right. And this is what we're talking about in a relationship. If we do not do the pre work, if we don't take the inventory on ourselves to figure out, I'm entering into this relationship, I've arrived at the relationship, and now it's time for me to engage in the relationship because I don't have all that I need because I didn't pack right. I don't have the empathy. I don't have the love. I don't have the self control. I don't have, as what we're talking about in this TED talk, I don't have the emotional efficacy. I'm not looking at things through a mutual lens, and I have not gotten insight on myself nor the person that I'm engaged in this relationship with. So I am ill prepared to fully engage in the relationship and to receive all that we can mutually get out of this relationship together because we are ill prepared. Let's continue.
So if she had used the skills, she would have been able to say, you know what? I know we're saving for that trip, but I really like that necklace that we saw the other day and it wasn't that expensive. He would have gotten it for her. She would have felt respected and valued. He would have been happy. They would have felt more intimate. This whole birthday gift thing would have gone well instead of ending in a fight that could really damage their relationship. Now, this was just an anecdote. We have data to support this as well.
Again, there's the data.
I've been studying romantic competence, the ability for people to use insight, mutuality, and emotion regulation among young people. In one of our studies, we looked at 13 and 14-year-old girls, early adolescent girls, and we found that girls who were more romantically competent felt more secure in their relationships. They felt comfortable being close to people, they could trust people, they weren't worried about being rejected. Girls who were more romantically competent reported fewer depressive symptoms. They had better mental health. They also were more positive about their expectations about marriage in the future. They were more optimistic that it could go well. Girls with greater romantic competence were engaging in more typical romantic activities for their age, things that were normative, like dating and flirting and affectionate behaviors like hugging and kissing. And girls who were more romantically competent were engaging in fewer atypical sex activities like sexual intercourse, which can be considered pretty risky for a 13 and 14-year-old girl.
Absolutely.
So even at an early age, 13 and 14 years old, when these girls mostly were not even in relationships, the more romantically competent they were, the more adaptive relational function they were showing, and the better health they were showing.
And so this conversation about romantic competence, all she's getting at here is the conversation is being had at an early age, with this target market, or this target group, this sample size, this sample group that they're dealing with here. And they found that having the conversations early on about what it meant to have a healthy relationship, showing practical ways to find and engage and show up in a healthy relationship, presented a shift in the thinking and in the mindset of how they viewed relationships externally, aside from what they were seeing internally, as in relation to what's being modeled, for i.e. example, in the home, or in their immediate circle. And so what we see here, this dichotomy here between nurture and nature. So we can see that the nature side of it, of just what we have been built to think about relationships, as far as your everyday practices and things of that sort, or just what's innate in you, or what has been shaped and formed inside of you from your thinking and your rationale, and how you act and you respond based off of your influences and your surroundings. They decided to step in and let's do some nurturing here. Let's create a different paradigm. Let's create a different way of thinking about relationships, or more specifically, healthy relationships. And what they found was that the nurture side, during this experiment, showed some benefits, aside from the nature side of what these kids probably, we can only infer here, um, of what they thought, and what a relationship was based off of what they experienced. So again, going back to our childhoods and what models we saw, that was a part of our nature, a part of our upbringing, and our cultures, and what we experience. So, let's start to shift this paradigm here and be intentional about the nurturing part of showing our young people what relationships are supposed to be, not what we see on social media and Disney films of the happily ever afters and whatnot. But what does a healthy relationship look like when you do the work on yourself and you're intentional with the other person, helping them do the work on themselves, showing them grace, showing them mercy, and coming together, two separate people coming together as one, trying to accommodate one another, trying to compromise, and trying to think on the same wavelength, the same path, to reach the common goal of having a healthy relationship. So it's just not on one person to do the work. It's from a mutuality perspective, and you having that personal insight, and so that you will have the emotional regulation, thus presenting healthy relationships.
We see the same things among young adults, 18 to 25 years old. More romantically competent men and women feel more secure in relationships. They also report making better decisions. They can see the warning signs when things aren't going well and make conscious decisions with confidence. They're also better at seeking and providing support to their partners. So they're more willing to ask for what they need and use what their partners give them. And they're better at providing helpful support when needed. And
Again, let's revisit this whole idea as we talked about last week in part one about the warning signs, as she just mentioned here. We see it all too many times, oh so often, of people who um, just totally ignore the warning signs. And then we wonder why we have jacked up relationships, and we wonder why the people are acting the way that they are acting. Well, no, we knew this right off of the bat. But again, our vision was jaded, our perception and our perspective was totally off course because there was something about that person that intrigued us, that we just had to have. We just had to be in their space. We just had to be in their bubble. And now we are placing blame on the other person, saying, "Well, you've changed." Well, again, let's revisit this idea of you've changed. We have to realize that in a relationship there are two people, and people just do not change overnight. There's a process. There's intentionality here. There's influence when we talk about change. There is a consistency that is happening when we talk about change. So again, if we say that the other person has changed, aside from what we knew of them before, what part did we play in the change? Now, most people will say, well, they changed on their own. I had nothing to do with it. I'm not going to take responsibility for them changing because their change has now affected me in a negative way. Well, I beg of us, please, ma'am, please, sir, um, our influence or our engagement in the other person, quote unquote, changing may not have been causal, but it does correlate. Why are they doing things differently? Why are they moving in a different way? Is it because of something that you've done, something that you've said, something of how you react, or what you are giving and are not giving in the relationship? Again, I'm not placing blame, but there is responsibility on both sides when we say that somebody has changed. And so when I pose that question to people, they by default will decline to say that they had anything to do with that person's change. So, if that is the case, if you had nothing to do with their change, this automatically pushes us into the next questioning, the next line of questioning. Well, what is it about this person that you chose not to see? What red flags that went off that you chose to ignore? And so now they would say, okay, well, they did X, Y, and Z before we got together or when we were first together, but I overlooked it. So here's the deal. At the end of the day, whether you want to admit that you had something to do with the change or that you overlooked that they were a certain kind of way when you got together, there is still a personal responsibility, no matter what, on you, that you either you made the conscious choice and decision to overlook it or you contributed to the change. We cannot escape personal responsibility in relationships. It is just not all on the other person. Let's continue.
And this isn't just what they told us. We actually observed them doing this in our laboratory when we asked them to talk with one another about a personal problem. Um, Young people who were more romantically competent also were more satisfied in their relationships. They were happier. And again, they reported fewer depressive symptoms and also fewer anxiety symptoms. So overall, being romantically competent at a young age is associated with greater, more adaptive relationship functioning and greater individual well being.
So again, here's the takeaway from what she's presenting here. Here is the encompassing a whole aspect of why she did the research is to let us know that at an early age, if we cultivate our children, if we cultivate young adults at an early age, if we catch this thing early, we can change the paradigm. We can shift the way relationships are presented in society. I mean, and that's with anything that we see, anything that we do. If we catch it early enough, we can possibly save it. We know that it's a lot harder to deprogram than it is to program. So we can do this thing if we are really intentional about it. We can change the trajectory of how relationships are viewed in society.
And this brings me back to my point that we need to be teaching people how to have healthy relationships.
Exactly.
So, like I said earlier on, we may know what a healthy relationship looks like, but most people have no idea how to get one, and no one teaches us how to do so. And this is a problem. We need to help people genuinely know what they want and need in a relationship. We need to help them select the right partner. We need to help them make good decisions and deal with the challenges that relationships bring. And we need to help them build and use skills right from the beginning. This is what the notion of romantic competence is all about. It's all about using insight, mutuality, and emotion regulation to reduce the behaviors that lead to unhealthy relationships, like fighting and poor support and hostility and criticism and contempt and violence, and create the things that lead to healthy relationships, like intimacy, security, respect, good communication, and a sense of being valued. And wouldn't all of our relationships benefit from this? I think they would. Thank you.
So I mean, I couldn't say it any better than myself. Eloquently done, might I add, um, by Miss Joanne Davila. She presented a wonderful argument um, of how if we start this thing early, not saying that we can't, change the paradigm now, but if we can get the information out now to us adults, to us old heads, um, and we start to pass this information on to the young adults that we know in our lives, to pass it on to the teenagers, to pass it on to our children, to cultivate our children, to teach them how to pick good spouses. Not to say that we're here to control their lives or to pick their partners for them, but no, if we are giving them the tools, the materials, and the resources and guiding them along the way to understand what a healthy relationship looks like. I mean, let's just even start with us adults, us parents, us guardians, us aunts, uncles, of just mimicking healthy relationships. So not only do they see it, but they're also being told about it at the same time. So we are aligning nurture with nature. If we are having healthy relationships in our households, and in society, it looks natural. It's second nature to them. And then at the same time, as we are mimicking these healthy relationships, we are nurturing what healthy relationships look like. We are showing them, we are guiding them, we are teaching them what these healthy relationships look like, how they are supposed to function, how they're supposed to run. And so once they're seeing these relationships, they can then ask us, well, how is this the way that it is? And we can guide them through the process. We can show them the tools. We can break it down for them. And again, as I sound like a broken record here, but I firmly and fully believe if we are doing these things in our own homes, we are then now affecting the family, which affects our community, which affects our society, which affects our nation, which affects us all globally and universally. So let's continue to do the work so that we can present romantic, competent people in our world, so that we can have healthy relationships, so that they will be in, have emotional intelligence, emotional regulation, that they will operate mutually to see how they can both work together to function properly and healthy in the relationship, and that we will do the work of insight, that we will look within ourselves and our partners will look inside themselves, and that we can come together, two separate people trying to walk together mutually, so that we can benefit the world and presenting healthy relationships. So, with that being said, fam, I want to thank you for joining me on today. And until next time, think differently about relationships. See ya.